Good afternoon, I'm Dilek Tuna. You're watching AnewZ. Let's see the headlines. US President Donald Trump claims monumental damage is inflicted on Iranian nuclear sites. Iran has condemned the strike and vowed retaliation. The UN Security Council meets following US strikes on Iran. Guterres urges a ceasefire and a return to negotiations on the Iran nuclear program. 20 killed in a suicide bombing at a Damascus church, a first such attack since Assad's fall. President Donald Trump is claiming success after the latest US offensive against Iran's nuclear program. As damage assessments continue, questions emerge about local power stability and future escalation.
President Donald Trump claimed on Truth Social that American airstrikes caused monumental damage to Iran's nuclear infrastructure, emphasizing that the most severe destruction occurred deep underground, writing bullseye, though official US assessments of the operation's impact are still ongoing. The International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed the strike's damaged tunnel entrances at the Isfahan nuclear site, a facility that stores much of Iran's enriched uranium underground. Director General Rafael Grossi told the UN Security Council that the targeted tunnels were indeed used for storing enriched material. Iran has yet to disclose what measures it will take to secure its nuclear assets. 7 B-2 bombers took off from the United States and flew an 18-hour mission to Iran, where they dropped 14 bunker-buster bombs on underground nuclear sites, including Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. They returned to American soil after carrying out a long-range strike on Iran's key nuclear facilities as part of Operation Midnight Hammer. The aircrafts landed near Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also stressed in a press conference on Sunday that the operation was not intended as a precursor to regime change. The Pentagon chief called the strikes against Iran nuclear facilities as incredible and overwhelming success.
This mission was not and has not been about regime change. The president authorized a precision operation to neutralize the threats to our national interests posed by the Iranian nuclear program and the collective self-defense of our troops and our ally Israel.
Satellite imagery revealed at least one crater at the Natanz enrichment site, though Iranian authorities have not released their own damage assessment. In contrast, prior Israeli operations destroyed surface structures and cut power to the site.
The International Atomic Energy Agency says that there has been no increase in off-site radiation levels following the US bombing of 3 nuclear sites in Iran. The agency had previously called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint and warned that military escalation increases the chance of a radiological release with serious consequences for people and the environment. The Director General of the AIEA, Rafael Grossi, has said that he will be convening for an emergency meeting with its Board of Governors on Monday. Grossi has been the target of much Iranian criticism in recent days for what the Islamic Republic described as conflicting statements that incited Israel's initial attack. Iran has condemned US strikes on its nuclear sites and vowed retaliation. Tehran also plans legal action against the IAEA. Turaz Shireliliu reports from Tehran.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has strongly condemned US attack on Iran's nuclear sites in Isfahan, Natanz, and Fordow in central Iran on Sunday. In a statement released by the Foreign Ministry, the minister said that the United States, as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, has committed a grave violation of the UN Charter. Foreign Minister Araghchi said that the events today will have everlasting consequences in the region, as Iran has vowed to retaliate against any attack on its nuclear sites. He also said that in accordance with the UN Charter, Iran will retaliate and respond to the US attacks, taking and reserving its right of retaliation. Earlier today, Iran's Atomic Energy Organization, in a statement, said that Iran will sue the IAEA, International Energy Atomic Agency, for its lack of action in condemning Israeli attacks and the U.S. attacks on Iran's nuclear sites, which are under monitoring of the United Nations. It is expected that today's attacks will have spiraling effects and increase of tension in the region, as Iran has already threatened that it will retaliate by attacking U.S. bases and its interests within reach. Turaj Shiralilu, reporting for AnewZ TV, Tehran.
A new wave of geopolitical uncertainty is gripping global markets as Iran signals it may disrupt one of the world's most vital energy routes, the Strait of Hormuz. The move underscores deepening hostilities with the US, but energy analysts warn the fallout could go well beyond the Gulf.
Iran's parliament has approved a measure to close the Strait of Hormuz, a vital oil shipping lane, in response to US airstrikes on its nuclear facilities. While the proposal reflects Tehran's growing defiance, any final decision rests with the Supreme National Security Council, which reports to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway separating Iran from Oman and the United Arab Emirates, but its geopolitical significance far outweighs its size. Connecting the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea and open ocean, it serves as the main maritime route for oil and gas exports from Gulf countries. Often called the world's most critical energy choke point, the strait handles roughly 20% of global oil consumption and a quarter of the world's liquefied natural gas trade. Major producers like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Qatar, and the UAE rely heavily on the passage to export crude and fuels. Data from analytics firm Vortexa confirms that between 18 and 21 million barrels have transited the strait daily between 2022 and May 2025. The stakes are high. Any disruption in the Strait of Hormuz could send oil prices soaring, destabilize global energy markets, and risk igniting direct conflict. That risk briefly flared this week. Following the US strikes, Brent crude surged over 3%, peaking at $81.40 a barrel, the highest since January. West Texas Intermediate also jumped, topping $78.40 before settling slightly lower. Market analysts say further price hikes are likely, driven by fears of Iranian retaliation, especially involving the strait. As the conflict deepens, attention has turned toward whether Iran will follow through on its threats. Historically, Tehran has threatened to shut the waterway during periods of tension, but has stopped short of doing so. However, this time, Iran's Press TV reports that parliament has reached a consensus. Still, the move awaits formal approval from the top Security Council and Supreme Leader Khamenei, leaving the threat real, but not yet realized. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has warned Iran against closing the strait, calling it a suicidal move that could rally international opposition against Tehran.
The UN Security Council met on Sunday to discuss US strikes on Iran's nuclear sites as Russia, China and Pakistan pushed for a ceasefire resolution. The draft, which does not name the US or Israel, condemns attacks on Iranian nuclear sites. The US is expected to oppose the resolution. UN Chief Antonio Guterres warned the strike mark a perilous turn and urged urgent negotiations.
I invite the following briefers to participate in
the bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities by the United States marks a perilous turn in a region that is already reeling. We must act immediately and decisively to halt the fighting and return to serious, sustained negotiations on the Iran nuclear program. The Non-Proliferation Treaty is a cornerstone of international peace and security. Iran must fully respect it. The United Nations stands ready to support any and all efforts toward a peaceful resolution. But peace cannot be imposed. It must be chosen.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi announced an official visit to Moscow during a press conference in Istanbul. Araghchi is scheduled to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin and hold discussions on key regional and international issues. He noted that Iran has regularly updated Russia on its indirect negotiations with the United States over the past few months. The two sides have also coordinated positions on major matters. Arakchi stressed Russia's role in previous nuclear deal and its influence as a permanent member of the UN Security Council. World leaders have reacted to the US strike on Iran's nuclear facilities as they warn of a threat to global peace.
Leaders from around the world have reacted to the United States' involvement in the conflict between Israel and Iran. This comes as US President Donald Trump confirmed a major military strike on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi called the strike outrageous and noted that there will be everlasting consequences. Araghchi also called on the United Nations to be alarmed by the actions of the United States. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres expressed concern over the US strike and called it a dangerous escalation in a region already on the edge. Guterres said the actions are a direct threat to international peace and called on member states to de-escalate the situation. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer supported the strike and said Iran can never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, calling it a threat to international security. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that Iran must never acquire a bomb and emphasized that stability in the Middle East is a priority with tensions at a new peak. Antonio Costa, the European Council President, said that he was deeply alarmed by the news from the Middle East and called on all parties to show respect for international law. Russia's foreign ministry has condemned the attack, calling it an irresponsible decision to subject the territory of a sovereign state to missile and bomb attacks. Meanwhile, Pope Leo has appealed to the international community to stop the war in the Middle East, warning that it could lead to an irreparable abyss.
Dear brothers and sisters, alarming news flows from the Middle East, especially Iran. In this dramatic scenario, which includes Israel and Palestine, the daily suffering of the population risks being forgotten, especially in Gaza and other territories where the urgency for adequate humanitarian support is becoming more and more pressing.
The US strikes on Iran come only days after Trump had issued a 2-week deadline to decide on US intervention in the conflict, with the US president stating that he wanted to give chance for negotiations.
While US officials claim that Iran's nuclear ambitions have been obliterated following precision strikes on key sites, the true extent of the blow is still under assessment. Joining us now from Lisbon, Portugal, is Lieutenant General Marco Serona. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Now, can Iran in its present state still be considered a threat to Israel in the manner Prime Minister Netanyahu recently described?
Well, we have to remember the 3 main points that the Prime Minister addressed before the attacks in the 13th of June. One of them was the nuclear program. The other one is the ballistic missiles production. And the third one, in the top of that, was the regime change, or at least Israel is not comfortable for its security. The continuation of the Ayatollah's regime in power. So after the attacks of the Americans, it's not yet clear if the damage assessment is not yet clear about if the destruction of all the systems that enrich uranium were destroyed. So I suppose that before that battle damage assessment is done, it's not yet for Israel. Israel is not comfortable with that. The missile program, it's ballistic missile program. It's something that Israel is still dealing with that, trying to destroy not only the factories that produce the missiles, all the technology structure, the people that are working for that, and also the launchers system that is very important too, because Iran could have the missiles, but without the launchers, it's not possible to send it to Israel. The third point is a point that is contentious, even from the U.S. side, about the regime change. The United States said yesterday that regime change is not an issue in the table. So I suppose that for Israel, the objectives, the strategic objectives for this war against Iran, this direct exchange, is not yet solved for the time being, for sure. Especially concerning the nuclear program. So that's the main point, I suppose, that for Israel could be the main point, that Israel continues to insist with the United States to go forward in this area, okay, in destroying the nuclear program.
Okay, Washington insists the US is not at war with Iran, though further strikes remain possible. Now, how far could American involvement go, especially in light of early remarks by the Supreme Leader and President Pezeshkian vowing retribution?
Well, we have heard yesterday that from the U.S. side that the U.S. does not expect another round of attacks, other than the Iran retaliate over the bases or American interests all across the world. So I suppose from the American side, and that was said yesterday for several officials, of course, especially the Secretary of State, that the U.S. is ready to restart the negotiation process. Of course, that we know from the Iranian side, the voices for retaliation are high, as we have heard from not only from the Ayatollah, but also from the Revolutionary Guard and from the parliament. So I suppose that now it's a little bit in the hands of Iran to manage the retaliation in a sense that does not obliterate any position of the U.S. in the region. So I think that the red line for the U.S. to come back with further strikes, it's the retaliation against their bases or personnel or interests in the region all across the world. That's the main point. For my side, I do not expect any second round from the U.S. Of course, we have here a problem. Let's see the battle damage assessment of the strike, mm-hmm. Because if the issue is not solved, I don't know if the U.S. could not come back in the second round, but just to insist in the obliteration of the systems that are in Fordo. So that's the main point. But it's something that we have to see in the next days, because the retaliation from Iran it's the main point for another round of attacks from the US side.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for joining us, General Surinov, and for offering such clear and timely analysis.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation.
Tensions between Israel and Iran have reached a new high, with both sides launching strikes in a dramatic escalation. Israel targeted multiple military sites across Iran on Sunday, while Tehran responded with missile attacks toward Israeli territory. Here's the latest on the rapidly developing situation.
Israel carried out a series of airstrikes on military targets across Iran on Sunday, targeting satellite facilities, radar systems in Kermanshah and Hamadan, and missile infrastructure. A surface-to-air missile launcher in Tehran and the Parchin military complex southeast of the capital were also hit, according to the Israel Defense Forces. In response, Iran activated its air defense systems over Tehran, with local media reporting the interception of hostile targets in the capital. Explosions were reported in Tabriz and Isfahan, with videos showing plumes of smoke rising into the sky. Blasts were also heard in Isfahan on Sunday. Early Monday, Iran launched multiple missiles toward Israel, reportedly aiming at Ben Gurion Airport, research centers, and command posts. Sirens sounded across Tel Aviv, sending millions into bomb shelters. The exchange marks a sharp escalation in hostilities, with both nations on high alert.
And now to news from Syria. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for an attack on a church in Damascus on Sunday. But according to the Syrian Interior Ministry, the attacker was linked to the jihadist group Islamic State. At least 20 people were killed and many others were injured after an attacker targeted a packed church. It's the first such attack since the government transition.
At least 20 people were killed and more than 50 were injured when a blast occurred at the Mar Elias church in the Dwayla area of Damascus, according to Syria's health ministry. This marks the first suicide bombing in Damascus since former President Bashar al-Assad was removed from power by Islamist-led forces in December last year. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack. According to the Interior Ministry, the attacker was linked to Islamic State. Officials say the bomber opened fire inside the church before detonating his explosives. However, a security source revealed another suspect was involved in the plot, though only one carried out the bombing. Witnesses described scenes of panic and criticised the government for failing to protect citizens.
We started to hear gunfire outside the church for almost 2 minutes. It was intermittent at first. Then the shooting moved to the churchyard and eventually inside the church. Suddenly, 2 people entered with explosive belts and detonated them inside the church.
The United Nations and United States special envoys, along with foreign ministries from numerous countries, condemned the attack, calling for unity against terrorism and expressing condolences to the victims' families. Authorities say churches have been targeted before, and even Islamic State attacked Shiite sites during Assad's rule. Meanwhile, the country's new leadership has promised to protect religious minorities who remain vulnerable to extremist violence.
Kiev suffered a brutal overnight raid, killing at least 10 people and leaving many others injured. The strike hit a residential building where the entrance was destroyed and residents feared trapped as rescue teams rushed to respond in what officials described as one of the most severe attacks in recent months.
Kiev was shaken by a large-scale overnight missile and drone assault on Monday, killing more than a dozen people and tens were injured, according to Ukraine's state emergency service. It hit the Shevchenkivsky district, where the entrance to a residential high-rise was completely destroyed. At least 4 people were killed there, with others feared trapped beneath the rubble. Explosions and kamikaze drones were heard from around 1 a.m., with the attack lasting more than 3 hours as drones and missiles pounded several parts of the capital.
Before going to sleep, I prayed to God. God, give me a chance to fall asleep and wake up peacefully. Please help me wake up today so that I wouldn't have to go to the bomb shelter.
Damage was reported and fires erupted across districts including Podilsky and Solomiansky, where a 4-storied office building was left in flames. In the wider Kiev region, a 68-year-old woman was killed in Bila Tserkva. Damage was also reported in Bucha and on an entrance to a metro station in Kiev. Emergency teams continue to work across affected areas with ongoing rescue and recovery operations.
Wildfires and desperate evacuations. Greece's island of Chios was hit by raging fires, causing chaos on Sunday as flames raced toward homes and farms. Firefighters battled through the night to contain the blaze.
Fierce flames and towering smoke swept across parts of Greece's Chios Island on Sunday as more than 100 firefighters battled a fast-moving wildfire driven by unforgiving winds. The blaze began around midday in central Chios and rapidly tore through forest and farmland, advancing on 3 fronts. Warehouses were damaged, homes came under threat, and at least 16 settlements were evacuated as a precaution. The most dangerous front pushed toward the coastal town of Vrontados, where crews raced to stop the fire from reaching residential areas.
If I wasn't here, my house would have burned down. With a bucket and a small hose, I managed to extinguish the fire. The good thing is that my yard, my house and my land were clean. You see, there is nothing on the ground. Despite this, my greenhouse was half burned.
On the ground, more than 140 firefighters and dozens of forest commandos worked through the night with support from 15 fire engines. From the skies, helicopters and water-bombing planes made repeated passes until sunset, painting the smoke with streaks of hope. Local authorities have now called in reinforcements from across the mainland, with more crews arriving on Monday. An arson investigation has also been launched. Wildfires are no stranger to Greece, but this year's blazes have come earlier than expected, raising concern among local authorities.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Azerbaijan issued a statement expressing concern over the recent US attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities. In the statement, Azerbaijan calls on all parties to exercise restraint and prevent further escalation. It emphasises that dialogue and diplomacy should be prioritised to resolve the situation peacefully. The strikes on Iran's nuclear sites caused significant interest from regional countries. Our correspondent Zainab Farajzadeh reports from the border between Azerbaijan and Iran.
Behind me is the Iranian border, but across that line, tensions are escalating fast. Israel and Iran exchange threats and drone strikes. Overnight, United States warplanes and submarines joined Israeli forces in launching a wave of coordinated airstrikes on key nuclear facilities. Fordo, Natanz and Isfahan were all hit, with the White House claiming Iran's nuclear infrastructure was destroyed. The fallout is already visible here. Hundreds of foreign nationals from China, India, Russia and beyond have been pouring across this border. Astara may seem distant from the battlefront, but with the conflict deepening, even distant cities alike that are feeling the consequences of tensions between Israel and Iran.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Kazakhstan has issued a statement expressing concern over the recent escalation in the Middle East. The statement emphasises the importance of diplomatic dialogue and calls for prevention of further destabilisation. Kazakhstan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has noted a sharp deterioration of international security following recent military actions against Iran. Kazakhstan underscores the need to resolve all disagreements, including nuclear-related issues, through negotiations in line with the UN Charter. The ministry calls on all concerned parties to work toward an agreement aimed at preventing the proliferation of nuclear weapons and ensuring the security of states committed to non-proliferation. Turkmenistan's Foreign Minister Rashid Meredov held a phone conversation with the US First Deputy Secretary of State, Christopher Landau. The two discussed bilateral cooperation and the ongoing situation in the Middle East. During the call initiated by the United States, both sides highlighted the positive ties between Turkmenistan and the US, emphasising their ongoing cooperation across political, economic, humanitarian and cultural fields. The discussion focused on regional challenges, humanitarian concerns and the importance of diplomatic efforts to resolve conflicts peacefully. Turkmenistan reaffirmed its commitment to peaceful solutions and its neutral status recognised by the United Nations. The country also conveyed its willingness to actively contribute to resolving the situation in the Middle East through various diplomatic means and mechanisms. The Turkish Foreign Minister met with his Syrian counterpart in Istanbul on Sunday. The talks took place on the sidelines of the 51st session of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation's Council of Foreign Ministers. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan welcomed Syrian Foreign Minister Asad al-Shaybani in Istanbul. They discussed regional developments and bilateral cooperation during the summit, which Turkey is hosting under the theme, the OIC in a Transforming World. This session is set to be one of the most widely attended in the organisation's history. That's all we have for now from Baku. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to AnewZ.